In this chapter, we cover name and contact information on resumes, and more specifically, we'll look at the names on your resume, the address, the phone number, and the email address, the basic contact information that typically shows up at the top of the page. When we look at the name on the resume, it should be the largest font size at the top of the page, clearly visible, so people can easily see the name of the person who the resume is representing. And so when you look at the font size and the type, it can be different from the rest of the document. So if you choose a different font type, that's completely okay. Preferred way to show the name is to show the full legal name, and that means that if there are instances where you have a shortened name, you can show it in an expanded mode, such as for Pat, Mike, or Susie. You want to spell it out, but by putting it into parentheses, you also show your preferences, how you want to be called, at the same time sharing the full name that you have. When we look at the address of the residence, it's just to give a sense of the general geography of where you live, and it does not have to be your full address. Unlike traditional ways of showing the full address, due to identity theft and other issues, you really don't know where your resume is going to go when you send it to a potential employer, and it's much safer to have a shortened version of your address and not your full address on your resume. And what that means is things of such as your full street address and the zip code can come off, and you can limit your address to just the city and the state, and obviously separating it properly with a comma and a space between the city and state. And obviously you can use the abbreviated form of the state, or you can spell out the state. Abbreviated is better in a sense because it takes less space. So something like that is going to be the best preferred route in contemporary resumes to show your residence on your resume. When we look at the phone number, something as simple as phone number, obviously we want to reflect the phone number that most frequently you're going to be answering. So as you're expecting a phone call from the potential employer, you want to use the phone number that you use constantly, and that can include the cell number. It's very acceptable to have your cell number on your resume. And one thing that you need to be careful about is a voicemail message. If you have a non-professional or an unprofessional voicemail that perhaps a dog is barking or something funny is happening, and it might be very funny and appropriate for a personal voicemail message, that needs to be changed for the purposes of job hunting and pursuing a career. You definitely want to, in case you're not able to answer the phone, you want the voicemail to be professional and appropriate for that interaction. Some of the flexible formats that you have, obviously, for the format, it includes the traditional format with the parentheses and a hyphen, obviously with a space between the area code and the prefix, and or the contemporary, which is including only periods in between the area code and the prefix and the phone number. So those are some of the formats that you have to use, that you can use, and obviously the key here is to be consistent throughout the document. And in other places you want to use the same format consistently. When we look at the email address, you want to use the email address that is most frequently accessed and used. So that might be a good idea to get a new dedicated email address that is specific for your job search, and because they're relatively inexpensive or practically free, you may want to get something like that. So a new email that is dedicated for your job search will allow you to focus on the emails that you are going out, and as well as the emails that you might be getting in response to your applications that you're sending or your resumes that you're submitting. And as such, you definitely want to have your email address to be something professional, and that includes anything that you might have in the front of your email. So you want to make sure that that email address is something that is professional and again is reflective of what you bring to the picture. So in this section we covered the contact and name pieces of the information that typically appears at the top of the page on your resume.